You may not realize it right now in this moment as a mama new to your child's rare disease journey. You may not realize that your child is going to be your biggest teacher. And right now you're thinking, I have this diagnosis, my child have these differences and conditions, and what am I going to do? How am I going to help them? But I promise you that your child will become your biggest teacher. And I know what I'm talking about because I have 30 years of experience. I have a daughter who was born with a rare genetic condition called trisomy mosaicism. And it, by far, she has been my biggest teacher. And you say, well, how can this small baby, or how can this young man, this teenager, or this middle-aged child teach me anything? And I think about that scripture that says, out of the mouth of babes, an ant could teach you something. An ant, we could learn from ant, from the way that they store up in the winter, can't we? But what I want to tell you is, I had a situation early on. My daughter was 3 weeks of age, and she was in the NICU. And she had been through surgeries and exploration of just trying to figure out what was going on with her, different things they were prodding and picking on her on. And I remember how we decided, because we were exhausted, going to the hospital day in and day out, all through the night, we decided to change up our routine. And we decided that we would see her later, much later in the evening, instead of just being there all day. And so we rested, and we ate, and we cleaned up the house, and we drove through something like a park. And then by the time we got to her, it was midnight. I'll never forget that night. And so my daughter, her name is Tiana, but that night we changed her name. She was known as Miss T because she earned our respect. She taught us something about her that night. But I can tell you, it took me observing and being intentional about observing her cues, the things she did and didn't do. And she was only 3 weeks of age. And I remember that night as we entered her room. And I remember her just laying there. And as I crept closer, I said, Tiana, Tiana. And so she looked at me, and she turned her head to the wall. And so I thought, wow, did she just really look at me and look away? Did she really just look at me and look away? And so I crept a little closer and I called her name again. And she looked at me and she looked away. And I thought, wow. She notices that we were not there to greet her at our normal time, and she don't like it. By then we had her diagnosis of failure to thrive, and that if she lived, she would be a vegetable. But that night, she humanized who she was by the mere fact of the way she was responding and communicating with us that day. And so what I want to tell you again is that your child will become your biggest teacher. You will become a student of your child. And because of that, you will flourish. You will be transformed in the person that you are, and you will wholly be able to help them live an inclusive life, live a joyful, fulfilling life. I want to tell you, I am a master at helping people, helping mamas learn to navigate and advocate for their child with a rare condition. So if you're new on this journey, DM me ready so that we can connect. I can meet you right where you are in your journey, and help you take the next steps in faith, and the next intentional steps to help your child.